Masters, the highest level that you can compete in a cosplay competition. A category known to inspire creative cosplayers around the globe to try new, innovative techniques. And also one known to inspire no small amount of fear, especially of elitist behavior. Today, I'm going to be addressing all of the ideas floating around about the Masters category, and discussing in depth what the Masters category really is. And as a bonus, if you stick around until the end, I will also be talking about my experiences and recommendations as an award-winning Masters level competitor and craftsmanship judge. So any Masters or prospective Masters looking for some new insight? Or even just anyone who wants to understand the cosplay competition scene a little bit better, stay tuned. Disclaimer up front, every competition is of course a little bit different, read your rules. But here I'll be talking about the more standardized guidelines that I've been talking about throughout the whole January competition series, which are, for the record, mostly based around the International Costumers Guild recommendations. And timestamps are of course in the description if you want to bounce around. I'm just gonna say it, the Masters category isn't actually all that special. For good reasons or for bad. Like, it's literally just a category that you can compete in. If you happen to watch Heroes of Cosplay back in the day and it's giving you some, shall we say, some preconceived notions about what the Masters category is like, and therefore what Master level competitors are like, do us all a favor and just throw that right in the trash. And even if you haven't seen it, I would recommend throwing all of your preconceptions in the trash, especially if you were on the con scene like pre-2010. A lot has changed. And for the record, if you haven't heard of and are curious about the show, it is a poorly made reality TV series about competitive cosplay from 2013. It was very of the time and does not age well in pretty much every possible way. But I'm sure some people will like watching that stuff, so you know what, do with that information what you will. Anyway, while the novice and journeyman categories are designed specifically to help cosplayers grow and to celebrate folks at different stages in their creative journeys, anyone at all can compete in Masters. And let's talk about this a bit more in regards to all of the levels, because this is actually one of the biggest misconceptions I see when it comes to cosplay competitions. A lot of people seem to think that they have to be qualified to compete in any given category before they even make the attempt to, when in reality that's just not true. It's actually exactly the opposite. If the general system stays as it is now, which it has for a while, there will never be any overarching qualifications list that will deem you a novice, journeyman, or master. Especially master, like I said, it's open to everyone. However, you may become disqualified from the novice or journeyman categories. This is, generally speaking, because crafting and stage performance skill sets can vary greatly. It's hard to break these skill sets down into qualifying lists when you never know exactly what skill sets the competitors will have. So competitions use a disqualification system that revolves around the awards each contestant may or may not have already won. So anyone at all can enter into novice if they have never won a major award before. But if they've won an award at the novice level or higher already, that's when they can't. That's when they'll be considered disqualified from competing at that category and should instead compete at a higher level. And the system works its way up the categories, so anyone can enter at the level of journeyman, even if they haven't won a major award in the novice category. However, if they've won a major award at the journeyman level or higher, then they can't. Then they must register as a master. And so after those categories, there's just masters left. And anyone can compete in masters, even if they've never worn a costume before, let alone competed in a cosplay contest. There's nothing that disqualifies anyone from masters, and there's nothing that qualifies anyone for it either. There are only the rules disqualifying previously awarded cosplayers from the other categories. So for real, anyone can compete in Masters. That doesn't mean everyone will, and of course some people may actually have to compete in Masters based on this disqualification system that is like literally in place just to level the playing field. But at the end of the day, literally anyone at all can compete in the Masters category. Now, this is not to say that this is the only place the fear of elitist behavior stems from, but I think that this common misconception of how the categories work, like thinking that there are qualifications and skill sets and maybe even previous awards required, rather than fully understanding the disqualification system where anyone at all can compete at the highest level, is I think probably where the biggest fears of elitism stem from. And unfortunately probably some genuinely elitist behavior as well, because behavior like that can show up anywhere and shitty people will use any shitty excuse to be shitty. First of all, and most importantly, I hope you never have to experience truly elitist and egotistical behavior. I can't control how your competition experience will go, but even still, I really hope you never have to put up with that crap. If you do, please know that it is not a you problem, that it is in fact a them problem, and if it gets really bad, please reach out to staff. They'll probably be very empathetic of your situation and do everything that they can to help you out. And secondly, because folks, when I did that response thing on Instagram a couple weeks ago, so many people said that they were terrified of elitism and Masters specifically. So secondly, and still important to realize, maybe just for the sake of calming your own nerves, please know that at the end of the day, even though some people can be elitist and gatekeepy assholes, this has nothing to do with the competition or their level. Truthfully, there's no reason to fear elitism in the Masters category more than you might fear it from people wandering around the con floor. It's not something you have to worry about more than in your day-to-day existence. I mentioned last week that this is actually my biggest fear, that this is something that I really struggle with, but I also recalled honestly that I have never met somebody like this in competition. I also said some anxieties are harder to wrangle than others, because some are just a lifelong struggle. But really, the people competing, even Masters, are no different than anyone else. Because they're no different, yeah, you might stumble across an asshole the same way you might stumble across an asshole in the line of dunks. But there's really no extra reason to worry. So don't waste all your time fearing elitism from master level competitors. Please me, I'm begging you, please stop wasting all of your time fearing elitism. Okay. I know I just said I think that this is where most fears of elitism stem from, but it may not be. I know a lot of people are still scared of that pre-2010 cosplay competition scene, where gatekeeping was unfortunately kind of the norm. But with the competition scene as it is now, there's really no reason to be scared of that either. After looking at a ton of past records of competitions from like before I started cosplay, like yo, I did a deep dive on that shit, it was ridiculous. Oh my god, the things I saw. It seems like a lot of contests judge their contestants based on who had a new cool technique. Because even just like 15 years ago, costuming techniques were still being discovered in the realm of the general cosplay population. Competitions like this really fostered the development of gatekeeping. Because when the information about techniques is still not super readily available, it actually benefited the contestants who wanted to keep all of their information to themselves. But looking at cosplay competitions as I know them nowadays, it really seems like the general cosplay population has changed that. I can't quite tell if it was an inadvertent change, or if people were fed up with how competitions were run and took it upon themselves to make a change. But it seems like, along with the rise of social media sites like YouTube and DeviantArt and Tumblr, tutorials and information on cosplay have become so much more accessible. And because of that, competition judging criteria has taken a massive shift. Nowadays, contests are judged based on how well people execute the techniques that they are attempting to do. To sum this all up, if you are afraid of elitist behavior in Masters for this reason, please know that competitions just aren't like this anymore. And there's once again no reason to be afraid. And if you have a totally different reason for fearing elitism in Masters that I didn't mention here, because I just addressed what I saw the most of on Insta, let me just circle back to the idea that garbage behavior can come from anywhere. And no matter what you're thinking of right now, there really is no reason to fear that garbage behavior in Masters specifically more than from anywhere else. So for real, don't you go worry about it. If there is one thing that you take away from this video, please let it be that the stigma around Masters is bullshit, because there's really nothing to worry about. Okay, I've talked over the categories and I've talked over elitism and the stigma, the bullshit stigma surrounding Masters. But you may be wondering, hey, if that's all true, what are master level competitors actually like? And there are definitely different types of master level competitors, but most masters that you'll meet at any old convention are just going to be people who have been cosplaying for a while. They may be various levels of gung-ho. For example, some may have worked all year on their costume to truly make their competition experience the absolute best it can be. Or some may just throw on whatever they have to, you know, also have a good time, just in a much chiller way. Some may have specific reasoning that they're in the category, like some may have done well in Journeyman the year prior, so they're here now. Or some may just feel a moral obligation to be here if, you know, they've really just been crafting for a damn long time. But generally, in the Masters category, you're just gonna meet people who have been cosplaying for a bit. That's really, honest to cosplay gods, it. I will say that there are different types of conventions and competitions, and that different types of competitions will draw in certain crowds. At a teeny tiny little local convention where anyone and everyone can compete, you will see people of all skill levels and all pep. One year, someone who just learned to sew may win the whole thing, while another year, the winner may have painted the damn Mona Lisa of cosplay. You never really know with these tiny cons. But when you get to larger regional conventions, usually you can expect a higher skill level and interest in competing all across the Masters category, just because it's a bigger convention with a bigger pool of applicants to pick and choose from. And certainly when you get to like the international big crazy competitions, where you can only apply as a master, and you have to apply with progress photos, and you have to make it through multiple rounds of regional contests just to even be your country's representative in the final one. That's where you're gonna see the people who are the most gung-ho and have the highest quality skills. I have never competed in an international competition before because I super can't afford to travel to the closest regional qualifier for any one of them, but I really hope that I can one day, because oh my god, it is corny as hell to say out loud. But I feel like even going out there just the once would be my ultimate celebration of cosplay, and I really hope I can do it at some point in my life. Also, side note, if you want to see that happen and you want to see me like document my entire experience here on YouTube, please tell me in the comments. Like, I will genuinely plan ahead if you do and I ever get the chance. And if you want to see me do any specific international competitions, or if you know a crazy cool costume design that you want to see me make, share those too. Like, why not? Until I'm actually like financially able to do it, I am open to all the ideas and I want to hear them, god damn it. Also, I only actually know of 2 international contests, so this might be a good learning moment for me anyway. For the record, I know of World Cosplay Summit and the Crown Championships of Cosplay, which are, I believe, actually now branded the Cosplay Central Crown Championships, which leaves me wondering what Cosplay Central is, but now is not the time. Out of those 2, I've only ever been interested in the latter because I've always been interested in attending C2E2, it just looks like a bomb con. And also because of Kyle Mathis's Big Daddy cosplay from, I don't even remember when. But him winning the Crown Championships of Cosplay back in the day is literally what inspired me to start competing. Like, genuinely, I don't remember what year that was off the top of my head, but I will also literally swear to you that it was like the next convention season that I ended up competing for the first time. Like, I was so flippin' inspired. But yeah, I'm sure there are more now, so please tell me about them. Alright, so now that I've told you about the people who compete in Masters and the different types of competitions, I do have to acknowledge that the competitions themselves can set the Masters category apart from other categories. Like, the Masters category isn't special. Everything I said at the start of the video is true. Anyone at all can compete in the category. That's why you should never give a shit about anyone who boasts that they compete at the master level. But when considering the size and reputation of the competition itself, you may find that this may not be the ideal category for just anyone. The larger the competition, the more that is expected of the competitors, and not everyone's going to be able to fit those expectations. These events can be massive, and they're probably never going to be able to accept every application, so it doesn't make anyone less of a cosplay competitor or cosplayer if they choose not to compete in larger contests, or if they apply and are never accepted. But this is something to consider when it comes to your own cosplay competition journey. Is this category and whatever specific competition ideal for you? Ask yourself and think critically, because it may not be. So this is cool when looking at the category as a whole. But what am I like as a master level competitor? I have to say that I consider myself a very successful competitor. Whenever I compete, I create an outfit for a character that I care about deeply, so that I can celebrate that character and the hobby of cosplay to the fullest. And even if I'm always super nervous about it, I can say that I have been able to enjoy talking to some people backstage. I really put my all into my competition pieces, and I really think that shows. And I think that that alone makes me successful. But on top of that, I've competed in the Masters category twice now, and I am really honored to say that both times I have won the entire competition. Look, I have crazy best overall craftsmanship trophies for both the Nightwalker from Princess Mononoke and for Guts from Berserk. And I have a giant check for the Nightwalker because that competition came with a grand prize, and I love this ridiculously oversized check. Check John. While competing in a contest is going to be a different experience for everyone, and different processes may yield better results for some people than others, and ultimately, you know, that whole judging thing that you go through, that's gonna be rather subjective. I do get a ton of questions about my specific process, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit here. But before I do, please know that this is just my process. You may find that what I do simply does not resonate with you, and you may want to use that feeling to continue down a totally different cosplay process path. And that's okay. This process isn't the only one that works. But if this does resonate with you, it might be worth exploring a little bit more. The number one overarching thing that I consider when working on a competition piece is the respect that I want to show my fellow competitors. There are so many people out there who are also competing and trying these crazy cool new things and have like an amazing cool connection with the character they're competing as, and you know, there are just so many respect-worthy things. And I want to show them that I appreciate and respect the work that they're putting in by doing the same. I put a lot of care into every choice that I make when competing because I never want to show up at the competition underdressed, as it were. I know a lot of master level competitors will go on about how they want to have certain things like a certain number of techniques or a certain number of hours spent on the cosplay, or else they feel that they won't even be considered for an award or whatever. But I don't. I don't care for the idea of trying to make a formula for a good competition piece. I just care about bringing to the table as much as my fellow competitors are bringing to the table. Because of this, when I create a competition piece, I try to look at my work as objectively as possible. I ask myself if the techniques I'm using work for the piece, and if I'm doing them to the best of my ability. I am very critical of my work. When I self-critique, I don't really consider what I'm attempting to do or my own personal crafting journey. I just ask myself, does this look like what I'm trying to create? And if it doesn't, I rework it until it does, or I redo it entirely. I don't think it matters what techniques you use so long as they work for what you're trying to achieve. However, when it comes to respecting the effort of everybody else competing, I do think it matters the care and the craft that you put into every technique. This is why I do a lot of pattern drafting and mock-ups and re-pattern drafting and testing of everything over and over and over again. So many failures before any sort of success. Until everything looks how I want it to look. I would never want to show up to a competition with work that looks like my first questionable attempt at something, because I wouldn't want my fellow competitors to think that I'm dissing them. I don't want to make it look like I think that my half-assed work has anywhere near the same level of craft as something that they may have put their heart and soul into. I don't think it would be fair to them, so I just don't. I always take the time to give them the respect that they deserve. This works really well for my process. When all I have to work towards is showing the respect that I have for my fellow competitors, it seems like everything else that might be considered valuable in a competition kind of falls into place. I inherently do things that are like expected of masters, and it's been really successful for me, and won me some awards. But it may not work for you, and that's okay. Especially because I'll also say, I have judged competitions before, and there are definitely certain things that I look for when judging masters. I've only ever competed in and judged craftsmanship contests, so the main thing that I look for is, well, craftsmanship. To me, craftsmanship can really be broken down into two things: technical understanding of the techniques used and how skillfully they're executed. So I look to see if everything functions as intended, whether a function is actually a function or just looks spectacular can of course vary. And then I look to see if it's neat and careful and artful. One of the biggest misconceptions I see when judging competitors in the Masters category is that they feel they have to have tried new advanced techniques and materials, and you know, all that stuff to even be considered in the running for an award. When in reality, to me, it doesn't matter what they've done so long as they've done it well. If I see an advanced technique but it's executed poorly, that doesn't look super great to me as a judge. To me, you might as well not even have done it. You might have even been better off had you not. But if I see any level technique that is just so crisp, near perfectly executed, that will be impressive to me. When I judged, it seemed to me like a lot of people focus so much energy on trying to stand out against the other master level competitors that they often forget what they set out to actually accomplish in the first place, especially if they want to be a candidate considered for an award, which is good craft. If you're competing and you're trying really hard to be recognized for your work, don't forget about having good craft. Also, don't forget about proportion. Proportion is a huge part of crafting your overall look. Like, please proportion your pieces correctly. This can be a struggle at all skill levels, but this is also where I see masters drop the ball, because it almost doesn't even matter how well you've done everything else, like how crisp it is. If your actual base proportions and patterns just don't look right. And that can just be absolutely heartbreaking to realize when your costume is like fully complete. So don't forget about it. Provided you haven't forgotten your good craft and, you know, none of the other masters have either, there are ways to stand out. In my recent craftsmanship specific video, I talked about how I think that people should just try something new for every contest they compete in and just do their best at it, because that is the best way to celebrate cosplay. But for masters specifically, I would also try to urge you to be innovative as well. Probably nothing you do will be truly innovative unless you are like the next great scientist or artist or whatever of our generation. But trying to do something that the judges haven't seen, you know, quite like that before can make your work a lot more interesting. For the record, I've inadvertently tried to do some innovative stuff on my competition pieces. Like, literally just out of respect for my fellow competitors, because I figured that they'd be trying to do it as well. So for the record on the Nightwalker, it is the glowing antlers that are created with hand-dyed Worbla's transparent art and finished off with Worbla's crystal art, which the judges claimed was the most impressive use of those materials that they had ever seen at that point in time. And on Guts, I made a ton of armor out of real metal, but for the pieces that I made that weren't real metal, I made them out of Worbla's black art, and I just did everything I could to finish them to make them look like the actual metal pieces. And the judges for that contest claimed that they couldn't see the difference between the two types of armor, and it really shocked them because usually you can easily tell the difference. Having my own innovative ideas rewarded has definitely made me look for other standout innovative ideas in other people's cosplays to reward, but only after I see that their craftsmanship is solid first. Well folks, that's it for the main part of this week's video, but I have 2 surprises for you. 1, this is actually the first video in a new series that I am calling Impractical Cosplay. What? OMG, to go hand in hand with your series Practical Cosplay? Oh my god, it's almost like you fully thought this out and wanted this all along. And in this series, I'll be talking about more advanced cosplay topics for everyone to learn about and work towards, but maybe sometimes for the sake of safety, only for advanced cosplayers to actually try. I've been really excited to start this series for a long time, as beginner content is pretty accessible and readily available to find here on the internet, but advanced content, not so much. So I have so many plans and I'm really excited, and I really hope you enjoy what's to come. And 2, January and our little month of cosplay competition videos may be ending, but this will not be the last competition video that you see here on this channel. I received so many questions from you all on Instagram that I've decided that I'll actually make one video about cosplay competitions every month for the rest of the year. And that'll be starting next week as February starts, if all goes according to Keikaku. We'll see. I'm gonna be a little bit busy for the rest of the week. But so any questions that I didn't get to, or maybe questions that I was a little bit short on, all of those will be fully addressed over the course of the year. Anyway, that is for real it. If you're excited about these upcoming videos, but you also just can't wait for them, do check out the rest of the videos on this channel. There is so much cosplay content just sitting here waiting to be watched. And especially check out last week's video where I talked about everything that cosplayers need to know to do their first cosplay competition. Even if you're a seasoned competitor and you don't really need to watch something like that, I would love if that video could just grow as a resource for beginners with the help of your advice in the comments. So please consider checking it out out and leaving some of your veteran competitor competition wisdom for other people to find. If you liked this video, please give it a like, as ooh, YouTube algorithm, John, still cannot figure out what my channel is about. It is apparently just too much to ask for. But yeah, liking can really help me and algorithm Chan out. Anyway, that is all for now, everyone. So until next time, I'll see you on the con floor. What? Last minute filming in my stream setup instead of my filming one right before my stream? What? Couldn't be me, no.